Hello, everyone. We're here today with Summa Silver and Galen McNamara, who is CEO. Galen, I know that Summa has two, the way you term it is two flagship projects. That's an interesting way to put it. And given the size and the scale and the potential, I guess sounds like a fair way to describe it. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you're working to advance both of these projects, and then we can get into a little bit more detail.
Sure. So, having been through this process of discovery several times, first you crawl, then you walk, then you run. So we crawled when we were putting the projects together, when we were doing the targeting, all the historical 3D compilation. And we walked when we tested the original targets, and got some really strong results. And now really we're ready to run and really aggressively drill out several zones on both properties to really, how many ounces are there? We need to start to really quantify how many ounces are there. And of course, we have some very high grade results. So, we always want to kind of continue those. And when you're drilling zones of known high grade and stepping out systematically, of course, your chances are very good, in my experience. So I was just thinking, a couple weeks ago, to be honest with you, when's the last time I felt this way, where we're really aggressive, like we really got to start drilling, we're really going to hit it hard. And before I was with Summa, I was managing all of the drilling for Next Gen Energy, between 2015 and 2018. And at the beginning of 2016, I just thought to myself, we had some strong results, but we had to do a bunch of drilling. And I just thought to myself, that was the time to run.
Right.
And of course, the rest is history on that one. But I haven't had that feeling since then, and I have it now.
That's good. Instinct's a big thing, and certainly it's if you've got the resources to make it happen, that's all the better.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, some two big and interesting projects. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the Tonopah project, eastern half of that district, and what you've been hitting, and what kind of potential, I guess, that's telling you.
Sure. Well, I think the place to start there is with the rich history of this district. It's really famous American high-grade silver district, going back to 1900 when it was discovered by a guy who was actually chasing after his runaway donkeys as he moved from one ranch to the next. He was a rancher, and as the story goes, his donkey stopped on top of the vein, and that was the discovery. From there, it was a big boom town, really one of the great rushes in the American West for sure. Produced between 1900 and about 1950, and in reproduction really it didn't shut down because the mines ran out of ore. They shut down because their cutoff grades were very high, their methods were very rudimentary by our terms, and the silver and gold prices were really low. So ever since then, it's kind of been a little bit forgotten about, these old high-grade districts in Nevada, because and people always ask me, why did nothing happen for 60 or 70 years? And what I think the answer is that starting in the 60s with the discovery of the big Carlin-style gold deposits, several grams per ton in an open pit or more at the beginning, those were relatively easy to find and were very, very, very lucrative. They built Newmont, built Barrick, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, these high-grade underground things were forgotten. But of course now with, silver and gold, of course, getting much more traction, and high grades really being very difficult to find and very rare, that places like this are very attractive again. And the great examples of winners in the not too distant past, you start with Mag Silver and Peter and his team's discovery. You look at the Silvercrest 1 and now Silvercrest 2, and then of course very recently Vizsla. These are all examples of companies that go into these famous old districts where maybe somebody is written off, but exploration is funny, really. It only takes one good idea, one right idea out of a million, and it can change everything. And and I think that's what some of these other companies have seen, and really our approach in a place like Tonopah is similar to that, in that hey, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. It's actually pretty simple if you do the legwork. So yeah, that's a little bit about the history, but some of the results we've had, highlight holes of 4,400 grams per ton over 3 or 4 meters, in that neighborhood as one, and many results like that. I think the highest assay was 11,900 grams per ton silver equivalent over a little under a meter. You know, so there's still some high grades there, but I can sit here and I could you know, I could talk about numbers until you felt like you were in the Matrix, you know. But really, like bigger picture, you know, if you zoom out 3.5 kilometers, you know, we've got four targets that we've drilled, and all of them have hit, you know, grades over 1,000 grams per ton, and you know, most of the zones are largely open. So, end of the day, there's obviously a lot of juice left to squeeze in some of these old districts, and Tonopah is one of them.
Ruby is something that you hit that's the easternmost part of your of where you've tested so far.
Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about why that's exciting for you.
Yeah, so Ruby is a 1.3 kilometer step out from the old part of the district. We've got 3 holes drilled there now. All of them have hit mineralization and good looking veins. The best result is in the neighborhood of 2 meters of 522 grams per ton silver equivalent. There's a high grade kicker in there of half a meter of about 1,600 grams per ton silver equivalent. But some of the strongest hydrothermal alteration that, you know, I and the team has seen, you know, and that's basically just geologic code for smoke. So we've got a lot of smoke out there. We've got a few zones of mineralization over 3 holes that are 100 meters away from one another. Each of them have hit. Have we found the mother lode out there yet? No. But, you know, hey, we know that, number one, the system continues with the alteration. The veins continue. They're open. And we've drilled just on the flank of a very large geophysical anomaly that has chargeability and resistivity. And I won't get too complicated, but those are really good earmarks often for this type of mineralization that we're seeing. We've just drilled the flanks of that anomaly. We haven't drilled the heart of it. So, you know, it's quite exciting. The team and our guys at site, you know, really want to get to that sometime soon, for sure.
Yeah, I bet. Sure. And from what I understand, with being well cashed up, you've got the means to do it. So that's going to be certainly something to look forward to on that project. Now, we haven't talked yet about Mogollon. Yeah. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what that is, a little bit about the history, and maybe how that's being advanced as well.
Yeah, so that's another one of these historic, you know, silver districts. And, you know, optioned that, well, first of all, we started Summa in May of 2020. And we optioned this property in Mogollon. It's in Mogollon, New Mexico, in August of 2020. You know, I always like the southwestern US. I always like these high-grade silver districts, and, you know, they're very, very difficult to find. So, you know, it checked all the boxes for me. So we did an option deal on that in August of 2020. And since then, I've just been really kind of working towards starting drilling there, which we did in October of last year. But even going back to the beginning again, you know, this one, New Mexico is a special place. You know, when you visit there, you just feel like you're in, it's hard to explain the atmosphere of New Mexico. But this one was discovered in the 1880s by a sergeant in the US Cavalry. They were up there on patrol and he saw some veins. And then he kept it secret. He didn't tell anybody about it until after he, you know, left the cavalry. And then him and his brother went up there and staked the first claims, which I think is a great story. So that one produced between the 1880s and about 1942, and production only shut down in 1942 because that's when the U.S. went into World War II. So that's when everything shut down. Right. You know, the place was then forgotten about until the 70s and the 80s, and then it was all put together largely by a geologist by the name of John Livermore. And John was the original discoverer of many of the Carlin deposits in Nevada. So he really liked this district. He put it together, and then he paid for a lot of the drilling that he did in the 80s out of his own pocket. He paid for it himself. He liked it that much. And got some pretty interesting results. So he drilled an area that was about 500 meters of the strike length of all the veins on the property. And it was 9 holes that averaged 12 meters of 500 grams per ton silver equivalent. Wow. You know, very, very strong looking stuff, very, very, you know, well mineralized stuff. Now, you know, like I said in the presentation that, you know, we gave, we can't use that in a compliant 43101 resource estimate for a lot of reasons that are right. You know, we don't have the core, the holes weren't really surveyed, we don't have the data. So, you know, we're just going to have to re-drill them, but that's fine. To drill that 500 meters at what it would take to get an inferred resource is probably going to require about 50 holes. Okay. And we know that the historic average of the drilling in there was 12 meters of 500 grams per ton. We've recently put out assays for the first 4 holes, and the highlight there was 11.5 meters of 450 grams per ton. So yeah, it's starting to stack up quite nicely with, you know, the historical averages, which is nice to see. But on that project, that original area that we're drilling, the 500 meters, it's really only the first little target. You know, there's 34 kilometers of vein in prospective structure on the property. And then last summer, you know, we spent a lot of time sampling everything at surface because we didn't have any data. You know, as far as I know, like that amount of sampling had never even been done before. So we sampled everything, and we're getting, you know, at surface 2,000 grams per ton silver equivalent, 1,000 grams per ton silver equivalent. You know, so in all those veins, you know, I just haven't been drilled. Some of them have small scale mining on them, but you know, that's about it. A few drill holes here or there, but that's about it. So you know, there's just a lot of opportunity in New Mexico as well as in Nevada, and I think we just, hey, you know, double our shot at a big success.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we're excited about.
Sounds like there's going to be a lot of very interesting news flow for investors to want to follow this year. Maybe you can tell us, we can wrap up, and you can tell us
Sure.
a little bit about what your outlook is, and what people can look forward to.
Yeah, so exactly. You know, we're well financed. We just closed $11.5 million with participants that included Eric Sprott and First Majestic Silver. So this year, you know, to use a little bit of a cliche, our motto is license to drill. You know, we're going to drill as many holes as we can into both of these properties. I know that New Mexico requires about 50 holes. Tonopah probably requires about 25, as we really drive towards mineral resources in about a year from now.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that great overview. Appreciate that, and we'll certainly be following this story very closely.
Great. Thanks very much, Peter, and it's great to be back here in person.